So, good day, greetings from Redwood City. And one of the inner qualities that's being developed through Buddhist practice, through certainly Buddhist meditation practice, is an inner strength. And one of those strengths is the ability to have a wonderful and a peaceful inner stillness. And it's the stillness where some valued part of ourselves can remain at ease and at peace, can stay still without giving in to the forces of desire or the forces of aversion, without leaning into something or pulling away, without holding tight to something or pushing it away. And a lot of the thoughts that we have, if you pay careful attention to them, chances are they have, what pulls us into them is desire of some kind, aversion of some kind, or fear of some kind. And, and so to be able to find a place of stillness, for some people it's a place where the calm center inside from which we can observe without being for or against things, that can develop into a strength. It doesn't mean we have no desires. It means that, or no things that we want different or don't approve of or things like that. It means that we can stay at rest within without losing our wisdom and clarity. We have a place where we're not triggered by habits and reactivity, and we can engage with all that we do with a certain kind of peace or quiet or calmness and there are times in our life where having this, calling upon this strength is really essential. And part of meditation is actually preparing ourselves for that time when that really is important. And so to sit with inner stillness that doesn't give in, doesn't get caught up in the streams of desire and aversion and fear. You will have those, but it doesn't mean we have to leave our still, quiet place within. So to do this meditation, we begin by having the body posture be one that supports some good quality of stillness, not being frozen still, but a stillness that's soft, relaxed, fluid. So taking a posture that allows you to be still and also alert. Sometimes if we lay down, it can be still, but we might not stay alert so long. So be a little bit careful if you do so, if you lay down. Some people will meditate lying down with their eyes open, just to stay alert. And then gently, if you're sitting upright, close your eyes. And to kind of appreciate the body being still, you might sway back and forth a little bit, sideways, forwards and back, and then slow down the sways until you come to a place of stillness. And it's easier to become softly, fluidly still if you beginning by relaxing your body. And I often find it useful to relax on the exhale, as there's a kind of release in the exhale. And we do that sometimes in ordinary life when we might say, ah, when we sit down to really relax. Saying ah on that exhale. So in the same kind of way, as you exhale, maybe softening the muscles of the face. Maybe imagining the face can be more open. Relaxing the shoulders. Allowing the shoulders to hang freely. The arms to hang freely from the shoulders. And then to soften in the belly. There's an art to letting the belly relax, be soft, maybe hanging forward and letting it settle down so that there's a little more weight in the lower torso. That's a kind of a ballast for sitting still. And then letting the whole body relax. Like you can just kind of let go of all the holding and tightness in your body. And then to tune into your breathing more fully. And letting the attention on breathing have a light touch. Not attacking the breathing with the attention, but lightly touching, being with the breathing, as if awareness is a soft feather that's just brushing, caressing the movements, sensations of breathing. As you exhale, perhaps you can relax the thinking mind, quiet and soften the mind that thinks and wants and doesn't want. Almost as if the mind is a muscle, and you can soften it and relax it, reassure the mind so it doesn't have to work so hard. And then with a light touch, resting the attention back into the experience of breathing. And while the experience of breathing changes and moves and expands and contracts, maybe more deeply than that, can you be aware of a place of stillness within? A calm, quiet place within, from which you can be aware of breathing. from which you can be aware of your present moment experience. A place of stillness that if you rest there, you won't be so easily pulled into desires and aversions, wanting and not wanting, fears and thoughts. If your mind is thinking a lot, notice the movement of it all. Maybe even a kind of energetic movement in your body. And in contrast to the movements of the mind, can you tune into a stillness in the body, stillness within, and take refuge in that stillness, a place where nothing needs to happen except to be aware of what is happening. Some people can tap into an inner stillness at the end of the exhale, allowing things to be still and quiet just for a moment before the in-breath begins. Some people can feel more of that inner stillness at the end of the inhale, just that moment before the exhale begins. And then maybe throughout the whole cycle of breathing, to have underneath it or behind it or around the breathing a feeling of fluid stillness, quiet, a place of rest within. And then as we come to an end of this sitting, I realize that it might be a little hard for someone new to meditation to appreciate the value of an inner stillness. But this inner stillness can be the source of love. A love which is not pushed around by the winds of pleasure and pain, wanting and not wanting, praise and blame, expectations of others, and neediness from within. This place of stillness, quiet, that participates with the world, that is in the middle of the world, but also not swayed by it or unduly influenced by it, from which it's possible to listen deeply to others, offer a compassionate presence, free of our reactivity and our judgments, and from which love, compassion, and kindness can have an impartiality, an ability to be equal to all beings, and not dependent on how other people are. A universality to it. And may it be that our meditation practice today allows us to spend the day close to a stillness, a quiet, a place of rest inside, safety inside, from which we can look upon all things kindly. We can look with love, remembering that no matter how bad things become, the greatest gift to the world is our love, is our contribution to a peaceful place, a kind place. And may this quiet place inside be a source of strength. And so our strength also is conveyed to the world. May it be on this day that all the many of us who are here for this morning meditation, may it spread from us a quiet and nourishing love and kindness, because certainly it's one of the things the world needs the most. May all beings be happy. May all beings be safe. And may all beings be free. Thank you. So to continue with this topic of the Eightfold Path, and continue with the idea of the second factor of the path that I'm calling right consideration, I want to step back and offer the Eightfold Path with little different words. So one of the things I've been saying is that there are two, maybe tracks of the Eightfold Path, two lanes of the Eightfold Path. The word magga, path, more literally means road, so I think we can say it a two-lane road. And Today I'll call it the wisdom lane and the liberation lane. I've called it the wisdom lane before. I called it the conventional Eightfold Path, and the liberative Eightfold Path is for the other. There are these two. And the wisdom side is engaging the Eightfold Path based on wise understanding. And that can be learned from a book, from a teacher, from some place we understand something. And the wise understanding is that actions have consequences, and that wholesome actions have wholesome results, unwholesome actions have unwholesome results. And therefore, pay attention to your actions. Be careful with them, even the most subtle, smallest actions, and choose the wholesome actions. That's the wise understanding. The wise lane continues to wise consideration. And the wise consideration here means that as we engage in actions, it's kind of an extension of this wholesome and unwholesome. Consider how to do whatever you do so that there's no craving for sensual pleasure, not caught in desire, greed, and not caught in ill will, or not caught in delusion. And so the wise understanding is to be careful and considerate and look at ourselves and really understand and feel and recognize when we're caught in desire, when we're caught in aversion, and when we're caught in delusion. And so wise to do that. And the motivation to do it is because we learned that it's wise, it's beneficial to do it. And so it's a little bit of a cognitive understanding that this is what we're doing. We can be very motivated, and we do it until we get the feedback that, oh, this is true. This actually is so. My life is so much better when I follow this wise lane. The liberative lane, the liberation lane, right view, has to do with a deep insight into the changing nature of phenomena. How everything's always constantly in some way or other changing and in flux. That in itself is the catalyst to help the mind to not latch on to anything, to hold on to it tight, or to take it as being permanent or enduring. For the mind to kind of learn how to swim in the currents rather than resist the currents or stop the currents or stand on the edge of the ocean and trying to stop the waves doesn't work, and trying to take the waves home doesn't work, and held on to them doesn't work. We stand there and maybe knee deep in the ocean waves and just let them wash by, come and go, and we're free and we're not struggling with the waves that way. So the right view is to see the changing nature of a reality and let that be a catalyst for freedom. So something deep lets go and relax. We let go of clinging. If that letting go of clinging is clear enough, then the liberation lane feeds into a right consideration, which is not based on considering what's wise, but rather considering where freedom is. And the freedom is, it's like with freedom from clinging, there's maybe the fast lane has been opened. And so stay in the fast lane, because then in the fast lane, it's just easier. There's less obstacles, it's just an open lane, open highway or something. And we just keep looking for that openness of non-clinging. And it starts to be, and that is expressed, that non-clinging is expressed in non-greed, non-ill will, and non-delusion. So it's the same three things as on the wisdom lane, but how we get to it is different. One is based on understanding and wisdom, and the other is based on some experience too that shows that it works. But the liberation lane is really based on a palpable experience and understanding and insight into the nature of the heart being free, the heart being liberated. And it's not always liberated and free, but that when liberation is clear enough, then they say that the Eightfold Path lives in us, because we really know that it's the expression of how we live our life that comes out of that freedom is expressed in the Eightfold Path. So with freedom, it's expressed in non-greed, in non-ill will, in non-delusion. So the right consideration for the liberative path is to consider or take in or to be oriented, to understand that greed is not the way, ill will is not the way, and delusion is not the way. So it's kind of putting a little bit more detail on the idea of avoiding the unwholesome by specifying what it is. And that'd be right consideration. Sometimes it's called right intention in English or right resolve. And it's some benefit in calling it that. But I think the way that the original word means and the way it's used, it has a little bit more to do with how we apply, how we consider, how we think about things. And we start thinking with both modes, the wisdom lane and the liberation lane, we are thinking more along the lines of non-greed, non-hatred, and non-delusion. So the way that these right considerations is listed, there's three of them. I believe it's a little bit my interpretation that they correspond with non-greed, non-hatred, and non-delusion. That the first is either means to non-sensual craving. It's the kamma, is the same word that's used for the first of the five hindrances, or the word means the renunciation. But here we can understand renunciation from sensual craving. It's the opposite of this sensual addiction. And then that's the desire part. The ill will, the hatred part has to do with ill will. And here this is the same word that's used for the second hindrance. And so ill will, hostility, something like that. And sometimes we call it just aversion in English. And the third is cruelty, or avoiding cruelty, non-cruelty, is the wise one, liberating one. And I'm associating this with delusion, because when we are actively cruel, when we are causing actively harm in the world, harming other people, it's based on a variety of delusions, a variety of misunderstandings about the nature of self and others, about where real benefit comes from, how we really take care of ourselves, where safety is. And we have to kind of shut down a human connection to another human being. Part of our own heart gets diminished, gets frozen, shrinks. So we can't really see clearly when we start getting involved in causing harm in the world. So I associate this with delusion. And so greed, hatred, and delusion is so right consideration to as we go about our world, to find our way down the highway, find our way down the path of life, either by actively thinking about, considering, recognizing that these things don't really work, understanding that greed, hatred, and delusion don't work, and the opposite do, non-greed, non-hatred, and non-delusion. Or really understand, feel, experience, experientially, how freedom is diminished with greed, hatred, and delusion, and how freedom is realized and expressed and manifested through non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion, through non-sensual craving, through non-ill will, and non-cruelty. And so to be on the Eightfold Path has this very practical, immediate kind of application that all things we do, we want to do it in such a way that they are an expression of this non-greed, non-hatred, and non-cruelty. And if you have to think about it and reflect on it, you're probably a lot better off if you spend time thinking and reflecting, considering things through that perspective. If you have some taste of freedom, then you don't have to think about it so much, because it's just like you would take your hand off a hot stove. It's just automatic. It's just very clear that it's kind of a self-harm. It's kind of self-diminishment, let alone harm for others, to be involved in things which are characterized or influenced by greed, ill will, and delusion or cruelty. So, so this first two of the Eightfold Path factors, right view and right consideration, are related. They overlap, and they are both together considered the wisdom factors of the path. And this is kind of the basic kind of understanding, orientation, point of view, reference point, frame of reference for what's going to follow in the Eightfold Path. And so the next set of the Eightfold Path is right speech, right action, and right livelihood, all having to do with how we act in the world. And the idea is to act in the world from this place of non-greed, non-hatred, and non-delusion, or non-cruelty. And so that'll come in a few days, and we'll spend one more day on this right consideration, where we talk tomorrow about kind of the positive wording of the right considerations and what that looks like. So in the meantime, you might, on this day, and especially those of you living in the United States, to give yourself a heightened exercise, a heightened attention and consideration of how and if there's any movement inside of you in the direction of greed, craving, sensual craving, addiction, any movement towards ill will or hostility or hatred, and worse, any movement towards delusion, the delusion that gives birth to cruelty and wanting to harm other people. And really try to come to that still place within, that place of freedom or wisdom, where you just really take refuge, really rely on, really trust that the best way to respond to the world, to live in the world, to support this world, is in fact from places of right consideration, considering things from the point of view of non-greed, non-hatred, and non-cruelty. And a day spent really centered on this idea is a day well spent. So may each of you contribute to more sanity in this world today. Thank you.